Thank you for attending Culturally Grounded Approaches to Support Children and Families in American Indian and Alaska Native Early Care and Education, Lessons Learned from Project Launch and Head Start. My name is Wilfredo Portillo and I'll be your 0 to 3 moderator for this session. Please note the following. This presentation has been pre-recorded. However, our speakers are present and will be available in our chat and to answer any questions at the conclusion of the presentation. To submit a question, please use the Q&A button below. We encourage the use of the chat window during the presentation, but as a reminder, comments deemed to violate the 0 to 3 anti-harassment policy, which can be found in the event frequently asked questions, will not be tolerated, and anyone violating the policy will have the event privileges revoked.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Sarche, and I am on the faculty of the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus in the Centers for American Indian and Alaska Native Health, where I direct the Tribal Early Childhood Research Center. I'm a member of the Lakota Band of Ojibwe in northern Wisconsin and a clinical psychologist by training. I've had the honor and privilege of working with American Indian and Alaska Native communities for nearly 25 years, partnering on community-based early childhood research and evaluation of early childhood programs. I am joining you today from Denver, Colorado, where I honor and acknowledge the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and other tribes on whose indigenous land I stand. As shared in our brief opening, I am joined by my colleagues Lana Garcia from the Pueblo of Jemez Walatoa Head Start program in New Mexico, Dawn Nixon, Johanna Wilson, and Amaris Andrews from the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Project Launch program in Wisconsin, and Ekaterina Zubak from the Health Resources and Services Administration in Washington, D.C. The 6 of us are here today to talk to you about how early childhood programs such as Head Start and Project Launch work to deeply embed Native language and culture within their program goals and services to support Native child and family health and well-being. Before turning things over to Lana, Dawn, Johanna, and Amaris, I'm going to start us off by providing some context, which will include a brief overview of who American Indians and Alaska Natives are as a population, some reflections on the foundational role of Native language and culture in children's development, and background on Head Start and Project Launch in American Indian and Alaska Native communities. American Indians and Alaska Natives are a small but young and growing population. In the 2010 census, 5.2 million people identified as American Indian or Alaska Native alone or in combination with another race, and made up 1.7% of the entire US population. The American Indian and Alaska Native population is younger than the general population, with 29% under the age of 18 compared to about 22% of the general population. It is also growing, and by 2016, the population is expected to reach 10 million, or 2.4% of the total US population. American Indians and Alaska Natives are a diverse population. In the US today, there are 573 federally recognized tribes, 63 state recognized tribes, and tribes without any state or federal recognition at all. Across all tribes, there is tremendous diversity with respect to history, language, and cultural beliefs and practices. The population is also geographically diverse. Just under 1/4 of American Indians and Alaska Natives live on tribal lands, such as reservations and Alaska Native villages, while nearly 3/4 live in urban areas. The city with the largest number of American Indians and Alaska Natives is New York, with a population of nearly 112,000. The city with the largest percent of American Indians and Alaska Natives is Anchorage, whose population is 12.4% American Indian or Alaska Native. Despite their tremendous diversity across all tribal communities, Native beliefs, practices, and languages are seen as foundational to health. And this is especially true for children. Native beliefs commonly hold them as sacred gifts from the Creator. Native languages embody these beliefs and defy translation to English without losing meaning. Native practices provide children with protection, support, and a sense of place, belonging, and connectedness within their families and communities. When children grow up with their native culture and language, they know who they are, where they are from, where they belong, and how to live their lives in a good way, which in many tribal cultures means in harmony with one's family and community and with the natural world. Research has shown that culture matters for Native children's health and development. It is embedded in frameworks for development, such as the one shown here that emphasizes children's connectedness to the natural world, community, family, and generations past and future. And it has been operationalized, measured, and shown to be a significant predictor of development. Research also shows that Native language and culture are a priority for parents. In a large nationally representative study of children in tribally run Head Start programs, nearly half of parents surveyed reported speaking with their child in a native language at least some of the time. And nearly all parents said that it was somewhat or very important that their child learn a native language. In addition, the large majority of parents reported that their child had participated in at least one cultural activity in the past month. Not surprisingly, Native language and culture are often integrated within early childhood programs such as Head Start, tribal home visiting, and childcare, which are funded by the Administration for Children and Families, and Project Launch, which is funded by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. But how Native language and culture integrated varies depending on the needs, priorities, and resources of each community. In a bit, we'll be hearing from Lana, Dawn, Amaris, and Johanna about their experiences integrating Native language and culture into Head Start and Project Launch. But before turning things over to them, I wanted to say a few things about each of these programs, particularly how they operate in Native communities. In the 50 plus years that Head Start began, it has served over 34 million children nationwide. As many of you know, Head Start promotes school readiness among children facing economic disadvantage by providing educational, health, nutritional, social, and other services to children and families, placing special emphasis on children's home and community language and culture. Head Start operates in 10 geographically defined regions across the US and in 2 additional regions defined by the populations they serve. Region 12 serves children and families from migrant and seasonal worker communities, and Region 11, which is shown here, serves children and families in tribal communities. Currently, there are 154 Region 11 Head Start grants to federally recognized tribes or consortia of tribes, and the states marked in red on this map are states that have at least one Region 11 Head Start program. These Region 11 programs serve just over half of all American Indian and Alaska Native children in Head Start. According to the same study referenced earlier, the incorporation of Native language and culture in Region 11 Head Start is common. Well over half of children are in classrooms and centers where a Native language is used at least some of the time for instruction, where Native language lessons are taught, where cultural items are present, and where there is a Native cultural or language elder or specialist available to support learning. For this reason, we're really excited that Lana will be sharing the story of her community's Head Start Native Language Immersion Program. Before I turn things over to Lana, however, I also want to share a little bit about Project Launch, which stands for Linking Action for Unmet Need in Children's Health. Project Launch has been funded by SAMHSA since 2008 with the goal of fostering young children's, and that means birth to 8, healthy development and wellness, and preparing them to thrive in school and beyond. The 3 guiding principles for Project Launch include prevention and promotion, which emphasizes the importance of addressing the needs of at-risk children and families before problems emerge and building on strengths to promote resilience, family-centered and culturally grounded practices that involve families as partners and leaders, and that place value on the cultural and linguistic richness and diversity within communities, and cross-sector collaboration and systems integration to build partnerships and collaboration to support young child and family health and well-being. In alignment with these guiding principles, the 5 core strategies are the direct services that Project Launch supports, including developmental screening and assessment, infant and early childhood mental health consultation and early care and education, integration of behavioral health and primary care, enhanced home visiting, and family strengthening. Since it was first funded in 2008, Project Launch has funded 6 cohorts of American Indian and Alaska Native communities. The timeline here shows the number of grantees in each of those cohorts. As the timeline shows, in 2018, there was a large cohort of 13 grantees funded under a dedicated Indigenous launch effort that placed special emphasis on strengths-based and trauma-informed approaches to family services, community-wide wellness promotion activities that incorporate Native language and culture, cultural enhancements or adaptations of evidence-based programs, the centrality of community voice, and capacity building, while also including a systems building focus on collaboration and grantee-led evaluations. The 2018 Indigenous launch grants remain active, as do the 2019 grants to 3 additional American Indian Alaska Native communities, including the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, whose team we'll be hearing from today. American Indian Alaska Native Project Launch programs have implemented a number of culturally grounded activities as listed here, all of which draw on cultural knowledge, teachings, and practices to create an integrated system of care for young Native children and their families. In the second session, we will be learning more about how the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Project Launch brought back traditional Ojibwe birthing practices to support families. With that, I thank you for your time, and I am going to close my brief introduction and turn it over to Lana. Miigwech.
Hetena ni dawi zo la ki him peta esidami ni bota on the te bono pokola padashiona. Good morning. My name is Lana Garcia, and I'm from the Pueblo of Jemez, and I'm the Early Childhood Program Manager for the Walatoa Head Start Language Immersion Program. Our language immersion program would have been in our 7th year of implementation, and we're going to do what we can to continue to honor and protect our Jemez language during this time with COVID. But today I just wanted to share with you our journey of how we started our full language immersion program. As mentioned, Walatoa Head Start is located in New Mexico. It's about 50 miles northwest from Albuquerque. And how we started actually was with a community session that was held in 1999. In this session, it brought all our community members together, young and old, and they asked them, what do you envision for Jemez in 2010? We've had another one for 2020, and the goals were pretty much around taking ownership of our program, of our education, and redefining our education. Another factor also had to do with language surveys that were taken in our community that revealed that there was an 80% language speakers in our community. Today, I think that is much different. And so through this, we were able to meet the needs of our people in our community, and that language and culture had to be the core of everything that we do. Next slide, please. This is my staff. I'm very fortunate to have them because they're considered critical resources in that they are speakers of the Jemez language. Yes, all 17 of my staff are speakers of the Jemez language, and I don't take that lightly. I'm very honored to have them. And with their help, we're able to provide a unique education that's very different from the mainstream Head Start model that are across the nation. And together we've decided that if we wanted to take on this journey, we had to revise our mission to what you see there on the screen. Our first mission was about supporting dual language and helping children to live in two worlds. But when we decided to change our mission, we said no, we wanted to focus on life here in Jemez, and we wanted our children to know, to understand the language, to speak the language. And so we've decided that this mission better reflects the purpose of our program. Next, please. So we're still, so in 2007, as part of the language maintenance efforts, we were given approval by our tribal council to conduct a community-based research. And this method, we gave parents the opportunity to share their beliefs around raising children. And the research really helped us to develop our language immersion program and basically, you know, what it is that we're going to teach our children. So the parents were guided by the 3 questions that you see. What should Jemez children learn in order to be Jemez? How do they learn these things? And how does Head Start support or not support their learning? Over 467 photos were taken, and only 25 made it to become our photo voice project, which is called Becoming Jemez. And through a process of elimination where parents would take pictures, bring them back to the center, we would upload and print and then vote on them, on which picture we felt best told the story or answered the questions. So that's how we came up with our 25. And these pictures that were chosen also gave us the 7 early learning foundations that parents identified through this process. So you see cultural knowledge there, gender-specific knowledge, values, principles, spiritual beliefs, ceremonial knowledge, and last you see there is our Jemez language. These early learning foundations are what's made up our program, or what's defined our education. A critical move that took place in December of 2012 was that our tribal council passed a resolution that would allow us to transition from the dual language immersion that I had told you about earlier to becoming a full language immersion program. And many people who are in the language immersion field or starting their journey will tell you that this is really important. It's critical because our leaderships in tribal communities have 1-year appointments, and during those times things can shift, things can change, you know. And so through the resolution, it really protects your work, the work you've done and the work that you're going to do. So on January 1st, 2013, we began our journey. We began our journey, and not everyone felt like, we weren't all on the same page. But one thing that we knew was that as children were coming to the program, we started noticing more and more English speakers coming to the school. And so as a staff, we really had to talk about, it's not a matter of wanting to do this or not, it's that we have to do it. We really feel that children are going to continue the Jemez way of life, and that we really need to make sure that they learn and know Jemez language and culture. So in these next few slides, I'm just going to share a little bit of how this happens. So we really engage our parents and our families through this education, because when they go home, we want our families to continue to reinforce their learning at home. And so one of the first assignments that we do, and it's so important, is that they have to identify themselves. They identify themselves with their Indian name, their clan, their moieties. And so these are just some pictures of how we identify children, how they identify themselves. Corn is a really important for our culture, and it's probably like the longest unit that we have here at school. It's 4 months long. Since school starts around August, September, we're right in the beginning of harvest, and so we make sure that those components are a part of our education. Corn is used in many ways for us, like I said. And one of the most important things is prayer. And we make sure that children really get an idea of the spiritual importance of our culture. And so that's one thing that I can say is that is totally different from a mainstream Head Start program, is that we really work on the spiritual development of children because it's so important to us as people. And so our children start their day with prayer, and they also make their own corn for their classrooms. And if they run out, they're so quick to remind their teachers, we have to make our cornmeal again. So it's really cool. We also embrace our local, our community, our sacred lands through our education. And instead of taking trips to the zoo or, we take field trips in our local community and in our ancestral lands. Another project that really engaged the parents was making a replica of our kivas. And our children, like I said, are aware of which kiva that they go to for practices, for other ceremonies. And so with this activity, we had parents and children work together to make a replica of their kiva. And boy, did they look delicious, some of them. Traditional foods is also a really important component of our education. We're famous for our enchiladas, and as you can see, the children are doing a great job from beginning to end. And so food is also a big part of our education. So one of the things that we decided as a staff was that we wanted to, like I said, just really honor who we were. And we decided to look at all the holidays, in a calendar year. And we really determined that those celebrations that were more important to Jemez and who we are were the ones that we wanted to celebrate. And also it helps us with the budget as well, and so one of the things in February that we honor is Governor's Day in lieu of President's Day, because we feel that our children have to know who the governors are, who are the ones that are leading our community. And so in this picture, we ask them to come visit us, and we also visit them in their offices. We have a big celebration. We are a community-based program, so we draw all of our resource from within our community. We're so fortunate to have tribal members who really care about children's education, really care about passing on their knowledge, their skills, their talents to children. And here we have just one, and there's so many that come through our program, but here's one where he's really explaining about the purposes of the different attire that children wear. Another thing that we also share is just some of the responsibilities that our young boys are going to be expected to handle as they get older. And so in that picture below there, you see the children at the ditch, because they're going to be responsible for cleaning the ditch before planting season begins. So we want them to understand and know, what that work entails. So additional funding is always good. So about our third or fourth year of implementation, we were able to get some funding to help us to purchase cultural materials, traditional materials that children could wear during play. And also we used it as for engagement nights where parents would come in and they made these little shawls for children, and they get to use them when they go watch dances in the plaza. Um, Men are really important, and I think it's really important for children to see them, especially in our school. So I've really, in the past, like I said, 7 years that we've been doing this, I've really tried to make that known, like, and the presence of men really be at the school, because there's certain things like dances that only they can teach and only they can do. And so here's two dances that where only boys or males can dance. And so it's really important to have their presence and their assistance here at the school. Our children also learn ceremonial knowledge. And this is around September, October again, when our societies go into fasting. Again, this is another opportunity where families can really get involved, because the offering that we take comes from their home. And so it's really great ways to bring the community together, because even the when they are in fasting, the people that are fasting now, we've been going to take offering since we started, so now they actually expect Head Start. They look out for them. It's really awesome to hear stories like when they get so excited that the Head Start children are coming to bring their offering. And lastly, of course, we provide a lot of opportunities for children to hear HAMA speakers, so that, you know, they get to the role modeling experience, and then just for them to hear how it's used. And so when we do have opportunities to bring HAMA speakers to the center, we make sure that there's plenty for all the kids. One of our most popular trip is to the zoo, and it's at the end of the school year, but I feel like it's appropriate because we can use so much of our Hamas language during that field trip. And so we also have other events, such as we celebrate Grandparents' Day, and then of course Native American Heritage Day. And we also have monthly motherhood and fatherhood nights, where we bring parents together to learn about traditional child rearing practices. And then right before I close, I just wanted to talk about data collection. So we're in our third year, though, of data collection. And we start out the beginning of the year with parents identifying for us where their child is at as far as speaking the language. And then in August, then the teachers use what we've developed as our Hamas language rubric. And then, you know, there's a scoring sheet that we use. And through that, we've been able to help transition our children from our Head Start school to the kindergarten schools, because they were a part of the training and the development of the Hamas language rubric. I feel that for the San Diego Riverside Charter School, which is a local public school here in Hamas, they've really supported our children coming from 2 years of full language immersion. And yes, there's a lot of evidence that children are learning that, you know, is helpful for funders to continue to fund us. But I feel like the impact in our community that we can see is just so much greater, and it's just not measurable. It's immeasurable. I mean, because we can't like take pictures of what we're seeing in our plazas where the dances are happening, where you always see Head Start children at the end of the line where, you know, where the dances are happening. There's one that I'll never forget, and it was for Christmas. We have a buffalo dance every December 25th and 26th, and I was sitting there watching the dance, and this group of singers started walking past us, and I noticed there was 4 Head Start boys standing up front, and we were listening to the song, and pretty soon the older males started dropping their voices, and then the young boys started to raise theirs. And this was done intentionally because you couldn't hear the men anymore. You could just hear those children. And the way that they sang, you know, so loud, so confident, so proud. I mean, it was just amazing. I mean, everybody was just looking around like, what's happening, you know, because something like this I don't think has ever been witnessed, where like I said, where it was intentional, where they wanted those children to take on part of that song. And the fact that they were able to put that much trust in our children to carry a song, it was just amazing. And so things like that, you know, there's no way I can record that or you know, to show evidence of that, except that it's always going to be in my heart. And I guess, you know, when I saw that, I said, this is why we're doing what we're doing, because this is what we want our kids to do. We want them to be successful here in our community and to contribute. So, and then two other stories that we've heard is where grandparents are able to speak with grandchildren, you know, like where the mom, the parents didn't learn Hamus, but the grandchildren are, and now they're able to communicate and have a relationship. So those are things that, you know, like I said, that they're just priceless, and that's why we do what we do. So that's all I have for my program. I appreciate your time and your attention, and I hope that what I shared with you will help you in your communities. Thank you very much.